What's up, guys? Going to do a bit of a Moon Knight reading order as far as my collection goes, plus some supplemental material like where we start with Moon Knight here. An Epic Collection looks like this, an Omnibus looks like this. This is going to give you his first appearance, which is in Werewolf by Night, then going into the West Coast Avengers, and then going into the first 20 issues of Moon Knight's first self-titled comic. So obviously the place to start. Huston and Finch's Moon Knight. This is where I started reading Moon Knight. I haven't read anything prior, but I did skip like a decade of stuff and haven't read the Dixon Moon Knight right before this, or before that there was a titled Mark Spector Moon Knight. This is where I started the bottom. This has 5 volumes. This is just volume 1, but this is pretty epic. I think especially volume 1, a very grounded, gritty. It feels like kind of a Daredevil style with the Moon Knight flair, but pretty violent, pretty dark. You got Taskmaster versus Moon Knight in here, and a very interesting story. This is one of my favorite Moon Knight comics. Which, by the way, the Huston and Finch is a decent place to start Moon Knight because it will kind of cover some origin stuff. If you get through volume 1 and 5 of that, you would go straight to Greg Hurwitz's Vengeance of the Moon Knight. There's only 2 volumes of this. This is pretty solid. It gets a much less dark because Moon Knight wants to stop killing, but I think it's still really solid. So from Huston to Greg Hurwitz, and then we get into Shadowland. That's where Moon Knight is after that Vengeance of the Moon Knight run, just for some context. Then right after Shadowland, you'll find Moon Knight in the Secret Avengers. This is volume 1 out of 3. This is a pretty decent read, but just again for some context on Moon Knight's reading order. Then you would go straight to Bendis and Maleev's Moon Knight. This is the creative duo that did Daredevil, one of the best Marvel comics ever. This is very interesting and weird, definitely playing on Moon Knight's psychosis. I really enjoyed it, but it is a little more polarizing. Then you go right to Warren Ellis's Moon Knight, Volume 1. This series continues for another 2 volumes, 3 total, but I think the writers switch up. Volume 1, when Ellis is on it, is spectacular. Again, one of my favorite Moon Knight comics right here. And right after that, you go to Jeff Lemire's Moon Knight. Again, one of my favorites. This complete collection collects that whole thing. So did the Bendis and Maleev complete collection I was holding. That collected that whole run. So Moon Knight getting a lot of really solid stuff just chronologically. Lemire and Smallwood do a really cool psychological thriller. I thought they played that side of Moon Knight better than anyone's done so far. This is a good one. There's another 2 volumes of like a Moon Knight legacy. Haven't read it. And then we're in the Secret Empire, Doctor Strange Damnation timeline of things as we move forward. Then Jason Aaron has a nice Moon Knight volume. Volume 7 is like Moon Knight's a villain against the Avengers, and he's giving them a tough time by himself. I think it's pretty badass. This is the most powerful we've seen the Moon Knight. Yeah, he's taking on all the Avengers, so that's a lot of fun. Then we get into the Jed MacKay Moon Knight, one of my favorites again. This stuff is incredible. This really brings all the best of Moon Knight, plus adding its own like dark yet colorful flair. I don't know. You got the Midnight Mission in there. Really, really fun Moon Knight story. I think Moon Knight's at his best here as far as the comics go. Right after the contents of that omnibus, you would go straight to Vengeance of the Moon Knight. Volume 1 and 2 still written by Jed MacKay, continuing the story that Omni left off at. Then you're at Blood Hunt, so that's the Marvel event there for context. A lot of great chronological stuff for Moon Knight, high quality, especially the Origin panel-bound comics, 50% off sale. Use code WhySoCityus for $2 off and to support the channel. But that's one hell of a deal. It does collect the perfect like origin of Moon Knight, his intro into the West Coast Avengers, and then his own title. So great place to start reading Moon Knight. What's up, guys? Going to do a bit of a Moon Knight reading order as far as my collection goes, plus some supplemental material like where we start with Moon Knight here.